Hari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari
Jai Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari
Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana
Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana
Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana
Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana
Yamuna Tira Vanachari
Yamuna Tira Vanachari
Yamuna Tira Vanachari
Yamuna Tira Vanachari
Ayorata Madhava Kunjabihari
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare
Jaya Radha Radha Kanta Radha Kanta Radhe
Jaya Radha
Jaya Nitai Gauranath Nitai Gaurachandra Nitai Gaurachandra Jaya Gaura Hari
Jaya Nitai Gaurachandra Jaya Nitai Gaurachandra Jaya Nitai Gaurachandra Jaya Gaura Hari
Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Prabhupada
Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Prabhupada
Jaya Jaya Gurudev Gurudev Jaya Jaya Gurudev
Jaya Jaya Gurudev Gurudev Jaya Jaya Gurudev
Jai Shri Laxmi Kirtan ki Jai Shri Bhagavatam ki Jai Shri Prabhupada ki Jai Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya
Om Namo Bhagavate
Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Mudire. Nashtaprayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. Bhagavate Uttamaśloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki. Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya Cha Nanda Gopa Kumaraya Govindaya Namo Namah. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 9, Text 1. Shri Shuka Vacha. Atmamayam Rite Rajan. Padasya Anubhavatmanaha. Nagate Tartha Sambandha. Swapna Drashtur Ivanjasa. Shri Shuka Uvacha. Atmamayam Rite Rajan. Parasya Anubhavatmanaha. Nagate Tartha Sambandha. Swapna Drashtur Ivanjasa. Shri Shuka Uvacha. Atmamayam Rite Rajan. Parasya Anubhavatmanaha. Nagate Tartha Sambandha. Swapna Drashtur Ivanjasa.
Shri Shuka Uvacha. Atmamayam Rite Rajan. Parashunan Bhavatatmanaha. Nagate Atta Sambandha. Swapna Drashtur Ivanjasa.
Shri Shuka Uvacha. Atmamayam Rite Rajan. Parasyanubhavatmanaha. Nagate Tartha Sambandha. Swapna Drashtur Ivanjasa.
Shri Shuka Uvacha. Atmamayam Rite Rajan. Parasyanubhavatmanaha. Nagate Tartha Sambandha. Swapna Drashtur Ivanjasa. Shri Shuka Uvacha. Atmamayam Rite Rajan. Parasyanubhavatmanaha. Nagate Tartha Sambandha. Swapna Drashtur Ivanjasa. Shri Shuka Uvacha.
Atmamayam Rite Rajan. Parasya Anubhavatmanaha. Nagate Tartha Sambandha. Swapna Drashtur Ivanjasa. Hare Krishna. word-to-word translation. Shri Shuka Uvacha.
Sri
Shri
Shuka
Shri Shukadev Goswami said,
Shukadeva Goswami said,
Atma,
Atma,
Supreme Personality of Godhead,
the Supreme Personality of God,
Mayam,
Mayam,
energy,
energy,
Rite,
Rite,
without,
without,
Rajan,
Rajan,
O king,
O King,
Parasya,
Parasya,
of the pure soul,
of the pure soul,
Anubhava Atmanaha,
Anubhava Atmanaha,
of the purely conscious,
of the purely conscious,
Na,
Na,
never,
never,
Gathetha,
Kateta,
it can so happen,
it can so happen,
Artha,
Artha,
meaning,
meaning,
Sambandha,
Sambandha,
relation with the material body,
relation with the material body,
Swapna,
Swapna,
dream,
dream,
Drashtuhu,
Drashtuhu,
of the seer,
of the seer,
Iva,
Iva,
like,
like,
Anjasha,
Anjasa,
completely.
completely.
Translation by Stephen Grace Srila Prabhupada. Jai Srila Prabhupada. Shri Shukadev Goswami said,
Sri Sukadeva
Goswami said,
O king,
O King,
unless one is influenced
unless one is influenced
by the energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead,
by the energy of the Supreme Personality of
there
Godhead,
is no meaning
there is no
to
meaning
the relationship
to the relationship
of the pure soul
of the pure soul
in pure consciousness,
in pure consciousness
the material body.
with the material body.
That relationship
That relationship
is just like a
is just like a
dreamer's
dreamer
seeing his own body working.
seeing his own body working.
Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Maharaja Parikshit's question as to how a living entity began his material life, although he is apart from the material body and mind, is perfectly answered. The spirit soul is distinct from the material conception of his life, but is absorbed in such material conception because of being influenced by the external energy of the Lord called Atma Maya. This has already been explained in the first canto in connection with Vyasadeva's realization of the Supreme Lord and his external energy. The external energy is controlled by the Lord, and the living entities are controlled by the external energy. By the will of the Lord, therefore, although the living entity is purely conscious in his pure state, he is subordinate to the will of the Lord in being influenced by the external energy of the Lord. In the Bhagavad Gita 15.15 also the same thing is confirmed. The Lord is present within the heart of every living entity, and all the living entities' consciousness and forgetfulness are influenced by the Lord. Now, the next question automatically made will be why the Lord influences the living entity to such consciousness and forgetfulness. The answer is that the Lord clearly wishes that every living entity be in his pure consciousness as a part and parcel of the Lord, and thus be engaged in the loving service of the Lord as he is constitutionally made. But because the living entity is partially independent also, he may not be willing to serve the Lord, but may try to become as independent as the Lord is. All the non-devotee living entities are desirous of becoming equally as powerful as the Lord, although they are not fit to become so. The living entities are illusioned by the will of the Lord because they wanted to become like him. Like a person who thinks of becoming a king without possessing the necessary qualification. When the living entity desires to become the Lord himself, he is put in a condition of dreaming that he is a king. Therefore, the first sinful will of the living entity is to become the Lord, and the consequent will of the Lord is that the living entity forget his factual life and thus dream of the Lord of Utopia, where he may become one like the Lord. The child cries to have the moon from the mother, and the mother gives the child a mirror to satisfy the crying and disturbing child with the reflection of the moon. Similarly, the crying child of the Lord is given over the reflection, the material world, to lord it over as karmi and to give this up in frustration to become one with the Lord. Both these stages are dreaming illusions only. There is no necessity of tracing out the history of when the living entity desired. But the fact is that as soon as he desired, he was put under the control of Atma Maya by direction of the Lord. Therefore, the living entity is his material condition, is dreaming falsely that this is mine, This is I, or falsely thinks that he is the Lord, and that everything is connection with the material body's mind. Thus only in dream does the misconception of I and mind persist life after life. This continues life after life, as long as the living entity is not purely conscious of his identity as a subordinate part and parcel of the Lord. In his pure consciousness, however, there is no such misconceived dream, and in the pure consciousness state, the living entity does not forget that he is never the Lord, but he is eternally the servitor of the Lord in transcendental love. Hari Om Tat Sat. Om Jnana-timirandasya Jnananjana-shalakaya Chakshur-unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Katamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Utapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagyajatam Sahagana Raghunatanvitam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sagitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagani Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langayate Gidim Yat Kripatamaham Vande Shri Gurum Dinatarinam Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Mancha Kalpatarobhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Eva Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. So today we're going to read from Srimad Bhagavatam, the next chapter, the second canto, which is the answers by citing the Lord's version. So we saw in the last chapter how Maharaj Parikshit had a lot of different questions, which more or less summarizes the entire content that follows Srimad Bhagavatam from start to finish. So he has touched upon all topics that could possibly be asked by a living entity. So he's asking about the spirit soul, asking about the creation, asking about the Supreme Lord, how he's manifesting in different forms, his incarnations, the purpose of his incarnation. So he's completely covered the entire topic of the Srimad Bhagavatam. So, the next chapter is very beautifully titled appropriately. So it says, answer by citing the Lord's version. And in the next chapter is also equally interesting. So it says Srimad Bhagavatam is the answer. I don't exactly recollect it. Bhagavatam is the answer to all questions. So here, Shukadeva Goswami is starting to answer Maharaj Parikshit's questions. So one of the first questions that Maharaj Parikshit asked is in the 7th text of the previous chapter. Let's go to that text. Let's see. So Maharaj Parikshit is asking, Yadathau matho brahman deharamba asya dhatubihi yadrichaya etunava bhavanto janate yata. So meaning, yet adathu mato. What meaning says that without being materially constituted. So the word dhatu means matter. So adhatu means it's non-matter, an antimatter or spirit soul. So Brahman, so he's asking Sukadeva Goswami, yet adhatu mato. So this spirit soul, how does it really start? How does it really begin? Deharamba asya dhatubihi. So how does it fall into this, in the material body? How is it embodied into this material body? Deharamba asya dhatubihi. So, is it because of chance, yadrichya, or is it because of some specific cause, hetuna? So, bhavanto janate. So, please let, Bhavan means you great soul, please tell me what you think is the cause. Is it by chance or is it by a specific cause? Why would spirit soul fall into the material body? So that is the question that was asked. So for this question, Shukadeva Goswami, so he's answering that question. So what is he saying? Let us see. So he says, Atmanaha, the spirit soul, Atma Mayam Rite Rajan, Parasya Anubhavata Nakatate. So meaning to say, this Atmana, the spirit soul, O Rajan, the king, it cannot function or it cannot exist without Atma Mayam, the Supreme Lord, Atma. It's not here, Atma refers to Supreme Lord, and Mayam, his external energy. Without, Rate is without. So this Atmanaha cannot function. This Para is here in the Bhagavad Gita also we see in the 8th chapter, Krishna is describing that there are two entities. He goes on to explain the different elements of this material world. Bhumi Raponala Vayu Kam Mano Tirevacha Ahankara Miti Enme Binnar Prakriti Rashtada. So then he goes on to say there are two other things. So one is the matter and the other is spirit soul. And one is Para, there is Apara. So here, Para is being referred here. Parasya Anubhavatmanaha. So this experience that is, Anubhava is experience, that is actually, that the spirit soul is experiencing, is impossible without the grace of the Supreme Lord, Atma, and by the support of the external energy. That is the answer to the first question. So is the spirit soul put into the body by chance or is it by any specific cause? The cause here, the answer that is from Shukadeva Goswami, the cause is Atmamayam. It is the Supreme Lord and also the material energy included. This external energy. It is only because of that he is able to get this experience. And Nagatate means it does not happen without that purpose. So these two are the primary cause. Primary cause is the Supreme Lord. The secondary cause is the material world. The body is provided by the material world. The three gunas is also part of the material world. So without this combination, so just the matter alone doesn't really help us do anything. Even if you have a body, so without a mind, it doesn't make any sense. So a body can be like robots. So without, there has to be a mind, there has to be intelligence, and there has to be the entire framework of the subtle body, the material body, immersed into this gunas, immersed into this material nature, which is influencing him to do different things. So this is the perfect combination for a spirit soul to be embodied and act in that body. So otherwise it is not possible. So the primary cause is the spirit Lord, secondary cause is the material energy, and the immediate cause is the spirit soul itself. The spirit soul is desiring different things, and because of which all these things are, he is doing different activities, different things are coming back to him as reactions. So a good example is the potter making a pot. The potter, if he has to make a pot, what are the different things that's required?
Water, you need water, you need clay, you need the turning thing.
Correct. So you need the clay, you need water, you need the instrument. So that is called as Mula Karana is there. What is the primary cause? The primary cause is a living entity desiring to make a pot. And Sahakari Karana, or the other supporting causes, is the other things, the other ingredients. And he also uses the tools. The tool is called Nimitta Karana. So it is using the tools in order to create all those things, finally makes a pot. So all these different reasons are there. So in the 30th chapter, Krishna is explaining very beautifully all these things in the how the Prakriti Vibhaga, how Prakriti is acting, how the living entity is acting, and how the Supreme Lord as Paramatma is acting. So he's giving a very beautiful explanation there. So coming back to here, so Prabhupada explaining the purport beautifully. He's completely covering all the topics here. He's talking about the how the spirit soul is distinct from material conception of life. And he says the external energy is controlled by the Supreme Lord. So and then he's citing from Bhagavad Gita about how the Lord is present in the living entity, in the heart of every living entity, and how he is making everything possible. He's giving the knowledge, he's giving the forgetfulness, and giving the remembrance. So all those things come from the Supreme Lord. It is not possible without him. So here, the most important thing to understand is the next part of the verse, where it is said, Artha Sambandhaha Swapna Drashtur Ivanjasha. How the living entity is perceiving himself being the material world. So living entity, so it's such a beautiful creation of Krishna that as soon as we come here, we feel so much part of it. This body, this environment. So there's so much of an attachment is there that it is very difficult to separate out, to really identify oneself with the spirit soul. It is so much part of it. So just like you have for example, this cloth which is white in color, so we cannot really separate the white out of the cloth. It is so intertwined. And that's why it is said that we have this philosophy of Achintya Veda Aveda Tattva. So it is so inconceivable. The Atma, how it is related to Paramatma. And in the conditioned soul, conditioned state, the Atma being the material world, identifies so much with the material world. Although that is illusion, that is not the Achintya Veda Tattva. But it is so wonderful is the creation of Maya that Krishna has put forward, that once we come into this material creation, Prabhupada also cites here that we cannot cite the history of the spirit soul. When the spirit soul came here, nobody can cite the history. It's called Anadi Karma. There is no beginning to it. So when it happens. But definitely it happens, the cause for it happening, Prabhupada is citing it here very beautifully. The desire for the living entity to become the Lord. That is the first sin. Therefore, the first sinful will of the living entity is to become the Lord. And the consequent will of the Lord is the living entity forget his factual life and thus dream the land of utopia, where he may become one like the Lord. This summarizes why the living entity comes into the material world. So he desires to lord over the material, lord over the situation. Just like Krishna is the Lord of everything, he is the enjoyer. Bhuktaram Yikitabhadam Sarvarokam Maheshwaram Sukhridam Sarvabhutanam Yantvanam Shanti Mrichati. So Krishna is the enjoyer. When we see him enjoy, so the material condition, just like when we see somebody better than us, how wonderful it would be if I can become like that. How wonderful it would be if I am in that situation. I become better than him. There is always a kind of a jealousy. It's always a sinful intent of being jealous. And that's the real first sin. That is the starting point. The sinful seed of the thought that comes in the living entity that I should become the Lord at some point. I should experience that being the Lord. So that sinful thought comes into the living entity, because of which he is cast into this material world. And he starts his life after life, starting from Brahma, and he comes down because of his different activities. He comes down to the living entities and goes all the way to the lower species of life. Again comes to the top and again goes back to the bottom. So this is a never-ending cycle of birth and death that keeps going and going and going. All because of one sin that we committed, that we should experience being the Lord. Why it is a sin? Because it is not our constitutional position. So this living entity is a Nitya Krishna Das. It is always an eternal servant of Krishna. So as long as we think in that form, we can think in that relationship with Krishna, then we can be really happy. But as it happens, the mind, in that situation, of course, there is no mind, but the thought comes in the living entity that I should experience the being the Lord. So because of which all these things is undergo. So really a pitiable situation. Being in that spiritual world with the Supreme Lord and being in the part of His pastimes and enjoying the different things with Him, how does this thought ever come? It's a really pitiable situation. So that's why it is said, Yadgatva na nivartante taddama paramama. Once we go back to Him, we don't come back. Because this thought has haunted us, and we are this whole life in this material world, after different bodies, undergoing different things. This experience remains etched into the spirit soul. So he never forgets that. So it's like touching the fire once. You don't want to touch it again, because you know it burns. Similarly, the spirit soul, when it goes back to Krishna, it never wants to think about being the Lord, because it's already experienced it, that it can never be the Lord. And you're convinced that one can never become the Lord. So he's fully convinced and fully engaged in the eternal service of Krishna. So it only happens once. That's why Krishna again and again says that whoever comes to my abode, they never go back. So that is a beautiful philosophy of Krishna consciousness. And so in this connection, so Jiva Goswami also quotes from in his Krama Sandarbha, from the first canto of Bhagavatam, very beautiful verse it is. Yaya sammohito jiva atmanam trigunatmakam haro api manuthe nartham tat kritam chapi padyate. So, once the living entity falls becomes a victim of Maya, bewildered by Maya, by its three gunas, then completely forgets itself. It's a real conscious position. So that is why, so even though he becomes Brahma, he comes to the material world, because Krishna has to give everybody an equal opportunity, just like an equal opportunity employer. So we see in the banks, we don't discriminate between people from different backgrounds, from this nationality, this origin. So we give equal opportunity to everybody. The bank has to give credit, so it cannot discriminate between a person from this nationality or from that particular race. It cannot discriminate. In the same way, Krishna also gives everybody a chance to be a Brahma. Once he comes to a point of Brahma, but because of the desire, doesn't enter to Lord material nature. So he doesn't really follow his laid out script of creating and maintaining the material world, but rather he puts his own thoughts, he puts his own desires into it, and because of which he gets bewildered and becomes a victim of Maya and falls into this further and further down to the different material bodies. So even for Brahma this can happen. So what to talk about the living entity? So we are so fallen, so we have to, unless we realize this point of we being the spirit soul and we are so powerless and everything is actually Atma Maya, that's because of the Supreme Lord and His energies. And we always understand this point, always remember this, how Krishna is there in His whole world. Krishna is the enjoyer of everything. He is the real enjoyer, He is the real proprietor of everything. So we will not really give up the thought of proprietorship. So this should always keep reminding us. That's why we have this Bhagavatam class. That's why we have this Bhagavad Gita class. It's always to keep us reminding that we are not the proprietor and we are not the enjoyer. Supreme Lord is the real enjoyer. So this concept of I and mine is so entrenched into the living entity. It is very, very difficult to take it out. So that's why we need a spiritual master who is stronger than us. If someone falls into the quicksand, so you're walking in the forest, and then you don't really distinguish between the quicksand and the sand. So you think it is a very solid platform and you can walk over it. But once we fall into it, then it's a trap. So we cannot come out of it. How much ever you try, more and more you try to get out of it, you're going to sink further and further down. So, it requires someone who is outside, who can really give us a rope or give us a stick so we can hold it and he can pull us out. That's very important. So someone stronger than us. If he is not stronger than us, then we're going to pull him in. Right? So it's very, very dangerous. So spiritual master is very much important. He can point us out where we are, how we are in Maya. Because the mind considers different ways within this framework. So you learn about Bhagavad Gita, we learn about the concept of Bhagavad Gita, but still mind finds a loophole and tries to bring in this self-entity and potency. It has a potency to bring in this concept of that you are the enjoyer. How you can really try to enjoy your position of you being a good speaker, how you can try to enjoy your position of you being the administrator of something. So everything there is an element of sense gratification. Unless we are intelligent enough, unless we are graced by the Supreme Lord, by the spiritual master, it's difficult to remove that tendency to lord over the material nature. So one should become dasa, dasa, anudas. One should become the servant of the servant of the servant of the servant. That is when we can really there's a good chance of becoming free from this conception of I am the enjoyer. So that has to be practiced. This is the practice that we see from the morning prayers, from the Mangalarti, Tulsi pranams we say. So, Seva Adi Khara Dasi. So we make me a servant of a servant of a servant. That's a prayer. That's what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is teaching us. That one should take the lowest position, being a grass on the street. People can walk over you. So one should be extremely humble. That's when we can chant. That's when we can always be Krishna conscious. 24 hours a day. So that is a position one should always aspire for. One should become a servant of a servant of a servant. Very nice. So this connection, there is a very beautiful verse, very beautiful story that I would like to narrate in this connection. So this is a story of a great saint with the name Nammarva. So there are different saints from different sampradayas, and especially in the Sri Sampradaya, the first foremost acharyas are the great saints by the name Alvars, and they appeared at the beginning of Kali Yuga in the Dravida Desh in southern India, and so they were all great souls. In fact, all of them were different parts of Krishna himself, in the sense different entities connected with Krishna. So one of them was like a Sudarshan Chakra, other one was the Panchajanya, the conch shell, another one was Kaumodaki, the mace Krishna has, another one was the sword Krishna has. So in this way, each one of them specifically, they are Krishna's own associates, close associates. They came into this world in order to preach bhakti. And the contribution was this Narayana Divya Prabandham, or 4,000 verses of Prabandham. This is called Tamil Veda or Dravida Veda. So the same Vedas is given in the Dravida language to be easily understood for everybody. Because the Vedas was only given to the Brahmins, those who are twice more. Only they can read Vedas. But they made it into a Dravida Veda so that everybody can recite and everybody can benefit. So they gave the essence of the Vedas. 4,000 verses, very beautiful verses. So one of them is called Nammarva. This Nammarva, so he was born to his parents, but before he was born, so the story starts. So every living entity, before he is born, so he is in the womb of the mother. And in the 3rd chapter we see a discussion between Devahuti and Kapiladeva. The discussion happens, and then we see how the embryo, he becomes conscious in the 7th month of pregnancy. And once it becomes conscious, it is trying to act and trying to realize where it is, and it realizes that it is in a very dark place where there are so many different impediments. It cannot move freely as it wants. And it is always constantly troubled by different things, including the worms in the stomach, including the digestive acid. So many things are troubling the embryo in the womb. And it is put in such a pitiable situation. So everybody when put in a pitiable situation, what happens? What do?
You pray.
We pray. That's what the living entity also does. Every soul, every living entity before it takes birth in this material world, every time, so it goes through this. It remembers its past life, all its past lives. Somehow Krishna gives that whole remembrance. And then it is experiencing the different bad experiences it has gone through in the previous lives. It is feeling so miserable. How did I do that? Why didn't I do this? So miserable. Imagine, even at the end of life, it said that will happen. That we'll remember all our past things that we did, then we'll live through it. All the miserable things. So, that's what happens to the living entity in the embryo also, in the womb. And then it goes through the bad experiences in the past life. And then it prays to Krishna. Oh my Lord, please kindly save me. I've done enough. And I've been through enough. Please save me from this situation. Such a pitiable situation. I don't want to go through this again. So it becomes a completely worshipping the Supreme Lord in his heart of heart. So Krishna knows this is actually not the real desire of the living entity, because it is a circumstantial desire. Because it is forced into this situation, being put in a very pitiable situation, he is praying to me. But once he is out of the situation, he knows he still has desires that he wants to fulfill. So he is not fully pure enough. So Krishna, in the 9th month of pregnancy, so Kapiladev says that he takes away that remembrance, and then he puts him into forgetfulness, into ignorance. So that's when it happens that the embryo, the child, the fetus, it turns around. It is there. So it is actually not upside down. It is on the proper situation in the womb of the mother. But in the 9th month of pregnancy, it turns upside down. And the Bhagavatam also says, not Bhagavatam, but in other places we see, this happens because of a specific air in the body. It's called the shata. So that turns around the living entity, the fetus, and makes it upside down. Because it has to be upside down or to come out of the womb, right? So it has to turn around. And when this happens, it forgets all the things that happened so far and completely is put in an ignorant state again. So then it comes out of the womb of the mother. And then there is very happy faces. Everybody is happy. Everybody is making him the darling. He's the apple of the eye. And he's just celebrating him. And he just carried it. It just goes on. Everything goes away, back, and then he forgets everything. And he's back to his own situation, his enjoying situation. So, it's actually, we might question, why does Krishna do this? The living entity is praying so heart of heart, and he wants to really become a devotee. Why does Krishna do this? Because it is not really a pure desire. The desire is because of being put in that situation. So Krishna wants us to really desire to be with him. Unless we desire to be with him, we will again make the same mistake, which we first did, of being the Lord and doing the same things. So we really have to refine ourselves to really be able to be around with him. So Krishna puts us through different situations so that we can continue to explore, continue to realize this world is not a wonderful place to be. So there's so many situations. So back to the story. This child in the womb of the mother, when this situation was about to happen, that this Shatavayu is coming and it is going to turn him upside down and make him completely ignorant. So he is said to have kicked that Shatavayu. So he did not have to undergo this ignorance. He is not made ignorant. He was still retaining all his experience. And he came out a child which is immaculate. He had complete remembrance and he was completely pure. And his child was very special. The child never suckled from the mother's breast. He never drank milk from her. And he never spoke a word. He remained like a dumb person. The parents tried their best to make him speak, make him do different things, but he would not really respond to anything. Just like the story of Bhagavatam also, right? So he was also not completely inert. He would not respond to anybody. He would act like a dumb person. Same way, child here also. He acted like a dumb person. He did not react to anything. But the beauty of it is, although he would not eat anything, although he would not drink anything, but he was still growing like a normal boy. And he was somehow nourished by Krishna himself. We know that. But nobody understood what is happening. So the child was growing and growing. So he went and he would sit in a tamarind tree. There used to be a tamarind tree in the village. And he would just go and sit in a hole in the tamarind tree. And he would not speak with anyone, he would just meditate. So when this was happening in one place. So then there was another wonderful devotee. He was another Alvar. So his name was Madhura Kavi Alvar. So he was a Brahmin, was born and he had all samskaras made to him. So very, very nice and pious Brahmin. And he had a desire to learn the spiritual science from a qualified spiritual master. So he was looking for a qualified spiritual master. And he was from the next village, not very far from this village. So this village is called a place called Tirukkovilu. This is Alvar Tirunagari. This was a place where this our Nammalvar is there. And another Alvar, Madhurakavi Alvar, is in the Tirukkovilu, the nearby village. So he was every day praying to Krishna, please send me somebody who will guide me through this, who will give me the spiritual instructions, who will help me understand these things. I want to really become your devotee. So he was praying every day. He was doing pilgrimage, different places, and he would always pray very sincerely. So one day, in the night, he saw a light coming out from a specific place. And he was very surprised. He thought, is that nearby village, is it under fire? It was so bright and light that nobody could see it actually in front. Only he could see it. He would ask, what is happening there? Nobody could, there's nothing there. It's all dark, it's all night. What is wrong with you? Go and sleep. So only he could see the light coming from that place. And he was wondering what is happening. And this happened night after night after night after night. Every night he would see the light coming from there. And he decided, but he would not see the light in the day. So he decided ulta. So instead of sleeping in the night, he would sleep in the day. And he would wake up in the night. And then he would walk towards that place, that direction. So he started walking towards that light. Walking. And finally he came to this saint, this boy saint. So the boy saint has never spoken to anyone. He has his eyes closed and he has not responded to anyone. So then what happened? So our Madhura Kavi, he thought he must be a special person. That's why this light is coming and I'm being guided to this light. Then he learned from the village that this boy, he knew the history of this boy, how he has never spoken with anyone, how he has been a special child from the very birth. And he decided to first test him. So he wanted to see if he's really a saint. So he asked him a question. So, Sitrathin Vayatril Siriyadu Peranda Adu Enge Kidakkum Enna. So that was a question that he asked. So when the literal translation is, a small is born in a dead, what does it do? Where does it lie? So it was a very cryptic question, and the answer immediately came from Namalvar. He said that Ange irundu Ange kidakkum. So it will be there and it will experience that. So meaning of that verse is very relevant to this verse. So the Sitrathin Vaitul Siriyadu Pirandal. Settathin Vaitul Siriyadu Pirandal means dead body. Small is born. So a living entity is embodied into the material body. So what does it happen and what does it do? That's the question. So the answer is that it will not change its form. Ange irundu ange kidakkum. It will remain as is, and it will remain there as long as it wants to be there. That's the answer. So all his questions were answered. So very beautiful thing. The other acharyas explained it very beautifully. How the small is different from large. Very discrimination is there. So small is a living entity, and large is a supreme soul. And this dead body is nothing but matter. This matter, three entities already described. The soul, the matter, the living body, and the spirit soul, supreme soul. So as long as the spirit soul desires to be the material body, he is going to be there. And the moment he desires to attain the higher consciousness, he is going to be reconnected back to the Supreme Lord. So that is a very wonderfully described in a simple verse. So then he immediately understood. He is a very great saint, and he is my spiritual master, and he surrendered to him. And then the story goes on, how the saint would still not move. The Mother would still be there, and he would continue to give him different Divya Prabandhams. He would continue to dictate different Divya Prabandhams, and Madhura Kavi would write down different things. That's why it was called Madhura Kavi. Madhura Kavi means a beautiful poet.
Would he communicate out loud? Or
Yeah, he started speaking.
Okay.
Okay.
The first time he started to speak.
He thought it was just something revealed in him.
Yeah, it was all revealed to him. So Namalvar already, he was experiencing and he was revealing. Many times he would speak and he would go into trance. And trance, if he goes, nobody knows when he's going to come back. But his disciple would be very sincerely serving him, and he doesn't have to eat anything. He doesn't have to drink anything. He just keeps speaking. And then he goes into trance. And Madhura Kavi would sincerely serve him, and he would note down whatever he says. And then he was the main composer of this Divya Prabandham, although it was composed by 12 different alvas, but he was the one who was prominent amongst all of them. It's called Namalvar. He is said to be Vishwakshena, one of the commanders of Krishna. And he came in order to give this all Divya Prabandhams for everybody to understand and make their life perfect. So the point here is that, just like Jadabharata also, the saints, so we don't know, pure devotees never really kind of say themselves pure devotees. So, but only a pure devotee can identify a pure devotee. So we saw how this, just like this, Madhura Kavi was able to identify him. So Jadabharata was a very similar story. So how he did not, his whole lustre, body lustre, was actually because of the tejas that he had in the body. So it was covered by the dust. Nobody could really see him, how great person he was. So only when he spoke those words, very similar words, just like Maharaj, what is his name? Jadabharata's stories. King, what's his king's name?
You know who he's talking to?
Yeah.
Rahugana?
So Maharaj Rahugana, he was teasing him. Oh my dear old man, he's very young and he's very nice and very well built.
Like
But he was teasing him. What happened to you? You're so old, are you so feeling weak, or you're not able to carry? So he was teasing him. And for this Jadabharata said, I'm not carrying anybody. So I'm not moving. So it's a very beautiful verse also here. I think I have this verse here. So Tvaya uditam vyaktam avipravlalabdam Bhartur same syat yadi veera baraha Gantur yadi syat adigamya adva Viveti rasona vidan pravadda. 5th canto, 10th chapter, 9th shloka. So, Brahmana Vacha, this is the Charabharata saying that Tvayo uditam vyaktam avipralabdam. O my dear Rajan, O my dear Veera, so whatever is said is not contradictory, he says. So, Bhartu same syat, you may think I am the carrier, and Gantur yadisya, you may think I am the mover. But Adigamya Adva Viveti Raso Na Vidam Pravada. None of this is true, he says. And when he hears this verse from Jadabharata, then immediately something strikes Raghugana. So he's not an ordinary person. Then he gets down to the palanquin, then he pays obeisances, and then ensues the discussion. The point here is that the great soul has to be heard. Great soul should not be seen. So one should always try to hear a great soul. Seeing, as the Nectar of Instruction also says, one should never judge a devotee from how he is looking, whether he is white in color, or black in color, or green in color. So one should see the devotee from his devotion, his actions, his words. It's very important. Hearing from great devotees is the most important. It's most potent because it gets into the earlobes, and goes to the heart, and it awakens the soul from the slumber. It has the potency. So one should always try to hear from the great souls, and less of seeing. Seeing is not really that important. Hearing is most important. So with this, I would like to stop here for any questions, any comments.
I was going to say to have that, when you were just saying about seeing and hearing, that relates to Vani and Vapu, because Prabhupada would say sometimes, it was like towards the end of the morning walk in Mayapur, and everybody was going, Jai Prabhupada, Jai Prabhupada. And then he sort of said he turned and he said, see, they're so happy to see me, but when that's because I'm here. Later, now, like one circumstance happened like in the temple room, and there was an elderly person came in, and Prabhupada was looking, he said, get this person a chair. And everybody's running to beat, but look at me, Prabhupada, see, I'm doing it now. But if Prabhupada wasn't there, would they still do that? Prabhupada would ask like this, if I'm not here, like when Jayadvaita Maharaj in Los Angeles, he said to Prabhupada on a morning walk, he said, ever since you've come, Rukmini Dwaukadish looks so beautiful. And Prabhupada said, yes, that is my anxiety. Because that is my anxiety. Because I'm here, they're serving so nicely. But when I'm gone, will you maintain that same standard? So, in the same light, you're in the sense you're talking about, you don't judge a person by his looks. You judge the content of what he is speaking and his actions. But Prabhupada also then, you take that to the next, like you receive this knowledge. You may personally, physically receive it from him. Like Prabhupada himself didn't spend that much time with Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada as his godbrothers, and they served him very nicely. Not to speak disparagingly about them, but Prabhupada's the one who continued. And 30 years after Bhaktisiddhanta left, with nothing, he established an international society. After begging the rest of the Gaudiya Math, he established it. There was nothing. It was just a little storefront with 1 or 2 people who didn't even know the philosophy. But he had the full faith in the instruction of the Guru to stand there and say, we'll have an international society of Krishna consciousness.
Very nice.
Yeah. It was a very nice class.
Always good.
Yeah, very nice.
Thank you, Prabhu. I, of course, have 3 things. Yesterday, my husband was giving class, and he said, Maharaj, Parikshit has the first question, he said. He couldn't remember.
Well,
you just said it today.
Yeah.
That first question was about the spiritual starts in the body or by a big chance. So is that the very first question that he asked?
No. No, not the first. No, in the beginning, he asked about what is the duty of the. In this particular section, it is.
Yeah.
But
The
prior
very
to
first
that,
question, what is it that he asked?
what is the duty of an intelligent man? It was on the threshold.
That was his first question.
That was the first question. It seems like it would be, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because he's asking about the
Spirit soul.
spirit soul. So that is the first question, like Prabhu said.
Yeah, just now with that, but
This
prior-
chapter, Prabhu
in this
is saying
chapter,
this
yeah. But
What
prior
is
to
it?
that,
Parikshit had previous questions also.
yeah.
Prabhu is saying.
And there was
What
like
was
three
his
of them.
very first question?
It comes in the first canto.
The first
But those are
canto?
the questions by the sages. They're
But it's answered about 2 or 3 chapters prior to this. There's 3 questions, and they're answered right at the end of that
correct.
point. Well, and one of
Even
the,
before the Brahma Narada discussion, he asked questions. That's
Na-
why this
yeah.
discussion came up.
He was saying that yesterday, but I didn't know what he was referring to. This chapter,
He's
or his
referring
very
to this.
first question. What was his very first question? This sounds like
He was referring to this question.
this chapter, this first question he had.
yeah.
Okay, that's good.
Because the whole chapter is questions by King Parikshit.
But he was saying something about his first question.
He was talking about this
He
question.
was talking about
This
this.
chapter.
He was
Okay.
saying.
Specifically this section.
Right.
Okay, that's good. And this alvars, there are 12 of them, right? Now, is there an individual, I thought I saw here somewhere about the 12 alvars, individual history of it. Where can you find this? I think about seeing a book here 10 years ago, and on all alvars, That's how I knew there was 12 of them. You just talked about 4 of them. But each one will have their own story and description, how they came and what did they do and all that
Not
stuff.
so much detail is there, because it's all happened in the past, long back in the past, nobody recorded, but there is this kind of an understanding of storyline of how it happened, how they became, apparently a changeover happened, and what was the turning point, and how they became. They were all already Nitya Siddha devotees. They were already eternally liberated devotees, but they are coming for a purpose. And what was the turning point for them to become? Some of them were from the very beginning. They were devotees. Like some had a turning point.
Alvars,
Lives.
12 of them.
Yeah. Like first one was Bhudatarva, Prayarva, and another, I forgot his name. And they all were devotees. They were never even born from human mother. So they appeared in different ponds, on lotus or different things.
Yeah, I'd like to know that.
They all became. They were self-realized in the very childhood, and then they were looking for Krishna. And they all were traveling in different directions. So somehow they
All came together.
Yeah.
at one
First
point.
one, it was like a first one came into a house,
Yes.
and then it was raining heavily. Second one came outside the house, and there was only space for 3 people in the house. And the third one also came in the house. It all happened by arrangement of providence. And they all knew somebody is there. The first thing, one was sleeping, and the second one came, that both were sitting. The third one came, all 3 had to stand. Then it is said the fourth, there was somebody, the 4th person. And they didn't know who they were, who was the 4th person. They were talking with each other. I am this, I am this, I am this. The 4th person is said to be Lord Narayana himself. When the devotees came and speaking about him, Lord Narayana himself came there. So they were all
All
glorified
12 of them came in that house?
Sorry?
All the 12 alvars was there?
No,
Or
no,
it is
4. Just the first three hours. They were there in the time of Kali Yuga, or end of Dwapara Yuga, Kali Yuga, like that time. And they all met in Alvar Tirunelli, in the same place. They all met there in one place, and then they were all discussing amongst themselves so much enthusiastically about Krishna. They were so happy to meet each other, all with providence because of heavy rains. Then when such discussion was happening, the Lord himself came there.
Wherever my devotees are talking, discussing me, I am there.
Yeah. So the Lord
Okay, my question, the last one. Of all the 12 alvars, Andal is also involved in that, or she's
Andal
separate?
is also one of them.
She's the only one. And she's separate from them, or she's just
She's one of
together?
the 12.
One of the 12, not extra. So she's the only one, like that, together. And she's Laxmi,
She's Boo, Mother Earth.
Earth, okay. I'd like to read about them because it's story, very exciting kind of stories
Yeah, very
in relation to Krishna, They go through a lot, different, especially I've heard some of it,
Yeah.
I don't know.